This is Alice Shapiro for Human Body Systems 1, and this is the narration for the PowerPoint for the heart. First of all, let's start with the functions of the heart. Regulates blood supply, generates blood pressure, and ensures the one-way flow of blood. We'll see how the valves are involved with that, and it routes the flow of blood. Here are the characteristics of the heart, as well as a diagram of some of the major features of the heart and major vessels. It's about the size of a fist and actually weighs less than a pound. It is muscular material. It is located between the lungs in the thoracic cavity. The apex of the heart in most people points to the left side, although there are differences in that particular anatomy. Notice the diaphragm and its close relationship. The coverings of the heart are called pericardium. Peri means around, and cardium refers to heart. The parietal pericardium is the membrane around the cavity, not adhering to the heart itself. And there is a space between the parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. The visceral pericardium is the membrane that adheres actually to the surface of the heart. The pericardial cavity is the space around the heart between those two membranes. The layers of the heart include the epicardium, which is the surface of the heart, the exterior portion. This shows you diagrammatically what those layers look like. The myocardium, myo meaning muscle, so the muscular layer of the heart, and the endo meaning inside of the smooth inner surface of the heart. There are 4 chambers: the left atrium, left ventricle, and right ventricle. The atria are the receiving chambers. The ventricles are the pumping chambers, and notice the abbreviations. The coronary sulcus separates the atria from the ventricles. The atria are the upper portions, and they contract minimally to push blood from the atria into the ventricles. They have received blood either from the body, from the systemic circulation, or from the lungs, the pulmonary circulation. The interatrial septum separates the right from the left atrium. The ventricles are the lower portions. They are stronger and thick-walled. They are the pumping chambers and contract forcefully to propel blood out of the heart, and they are separated by an interventricular septum. Here is a diagram of the surface of the heart showing you some of the features. Please spend some time with the diagrams and be able to recognize the major features and understand what the functions of each of these features is. The valves are structures that help to ensure one-way flow of blood. There are atrioventricular valves, the AV valves, which are between the atria and the ventricles. That consists of 2 different valves, the tricuspid valve, or also called the right AV valve, called tricuspid because of its structure containing 3 cusps. The bicuspid valve, or the left AV valve, and it's called mitral. If any of you are familiar with the shape of the hat of a bishop, the hat of a bishop is called the bishop's mitre. So that's where that term actually came from. The chordae tendineae are little threads of connective tissue that attach the AV valve flaps to papillary muscles, and they support the valves. Semilunar valves are between the pulmonary trunk, the pulmonary arteries at the base of the pulmonary trunk, and the aortic semilunar valves at the base of the aorta. We'll take a look at these in a moment diagrammatically as well. Here is a actual picture showing you the papillary muscles, the chordae tendineae, and the some of the AV valves and their cusps. Make sure you understand the functions of the papillary muscles too. This diagrammatically shows you the functions of the heart valves. When the blood flows from the atria to the ventricles through the AV valves, the valves are open, and because of back pressure from the aorta, the semilunar valve is closed. When pressure in the ventricles increases, the AV valves close, and the semilunar valves, in this case the aortic semilunar valve, opens, allowing the blood to flow into the aorta. The right side of the heart is the pulmonary circuit, carries blood from the heart to the lungs. This blood is poor in oxygen, rich in carbon dioxide, because it has returned from the body, has not yet been oxygenated, has not yet traveled to the lungs to be oxygenated. Arteries are defined as carrying blood away from the heart. Veins are defined as carrying blood towards the heart. And here is what occurs. The right atrium receives blood from 3 places. You can read about that. And this tells you what these vessels do. Please make sure you understand what these vessels do and where they bring their blood. So the right atrium. The right ventricle opens into the pulmonary trunk and therefore brings blood to the lungs to be oxygenated. The left side of the heart is called the systemic circuit because it carries blood from the heart. This blood is now highly oxygenated to the rest of the body. The left atrium has 4 openings that receive blood from the lungs. The left ventricle opens into the aorta, and it is the thickest of the chambers, contracts more forcefully, and has higher blood pressure than the right ventricle because it has to deliver blood to the entire body, not just to the lungs. The aorta carries blood from the left ventricle to the body. Here's another diagram similar of the exterior features of the heart and other diagrams. Please study the diagrams, interior diagrams showing you the papillary muscles, chordae tendineae, the location of some of the valves. Blood flow through the heart. I do want you to know the sequence of blood flow through the heart. You will have questions about this in which you are asked to sequence the blood flow through the heart. So follow this starting with the right atrium. I'll show this for a moment, but this is in your textbook. You can review this, and you can review this via the PowerPoints that are on your Moodle page and look at this as often as you like. This shows you diagrammatically what will happen. Again, starting with the right atrium. Blood goes through the right AV valves into the right ventricle to the pulmonary trunk, becomes oxygenated, returns through the pulmonary veins high in oxygen, returns to the left atrium, through the left AV or bicuspid valve into the aorta, where it is then distributed throughout the body. So not really difficult to remember, but you do need to look at this sequence. I think it's extremely important, and it's extremely important that these valves prevent the backflow. Think about the consequences of backflow of blood. This is one of your forum questions, and the forum question for this week. Blood supply to the heart itself. The heart is a muscle, requires blood supply. Coronary arteries originate from the base of the aorta above the aortic semilunar valve. The left coronary artery has 3 branches, and it supplies blood to the anterior heart wall and the left ventricle. Right coronary artery originates in the right side of the aorta, and it supplies blood to the right ventricle. The heart beat is self-perpetuating. If you remove a heart from an animal, it will continue to beat. So it is we could say self-perpetuating, self-initiating. And it originates in the SA or sinoatrial node, which is in the right atrium. The action potential originates here. This functions as the pacemaker of the heart, Calcium is involved in transmission of this signal, and there are a large number of calcium channels in this area. The path of the action potential through the heart, I want you to take a look at this and understand and learn it as well. From the SA node to the atrioventricular node to a bundle of nerve-type fibers called the AV bundle, which then branches out to Purkinje fibers. Let's take a look at this diagrammatically. Here is the pacemaker, the SA node. Action potentials are received by the AV node. These action potentials travel via the AV bundle, branch out into the left and right bundle branches, then to the Purkinje fibers, which carry this electrical stimulation throughout the myocardium. Please spend some time with this. An EEG, or electrocardiogram, records the electrical events of the heart. It can diagnose cardiac abnormalities, and we will not really belabor that. But I want to kind of end with talking about the cardiac cycle. The heart is two-sided. It has two pumps side by side, kind of a left and a right. The atria are the receiving chambers. The ventricles are the pumping chambers. I've mentioned this before. The cardiac cycle is the repetitive pumping action which includes contraction and relaxation of the heart muscle. It consists of atrial systole. Systole is contraction. So first atrial systole, contraction of the atria, followed by ventricular systole, contraction of the ventricles. Atrial diastole. Diastole is relaxation of the heart muscle. So relaxation of the atria followed by relaxation of the ventricles. Heart sounds can be listened to via a stethoscope. First sound is kind of a lub, second is kind of a dup sound, and the sounds result from opening and closing of the valves. Murmurs can be detected this way, and they are due to faulty valves, leaky valves. Regulation of heart function. Stroke volume is the volume pumped per ventricle per contraction, and it's about 70 milliliters of blood per beat. Heart rate is the number of heartbeats per minute. The average, let's say, is about 72 beats per minute. The cardiac output is the volume of blood pumped via ventricle in 1 minute. It's about 5 liters of blood. The cardiac output equals the stroke volume times the heart rate. There is extrinsic regulation of the heart. Those are mechanisms that regulate the heart beat or affect the heartbeat. They can be nervous or chemical regulations. Let's take a brief look at that. Nervous regulations occur via sympathetic and parasympathetic stimulation, and also by hormones from the adrenal medulla, epinephrine and norepinephrine. As you can suppose, and we will take a look briefly at this, these are negative feedback systems. Let's go on because there's a little more explanation here. The baroreceptor, pressure receptor reflex, regulate heart function, keeps heart rate and stroke volume in the normal range, monitor the blood pressure located in the aorta and the carotid arteries, which carry blood to the brain. Changes in blood pressure cause changes in the frequency of action potentials, and the medulla oblongata is involved in this process. Diagrammatically, this is what this looks like. Take a look at this diagram in your textbook. And it is a negative feedback reaction that occurs. If you start here, you can see that when blood pressure decreases, the baroreceptors will stimulate the heart rate and stroke volume to increase. And when this is restored, then the stimulation will decrease, restoring the blood, or excuse me, the heart to its normal cardiac output and normal pressure. When blood pressure increases, then stroke volume and cardiac output will decrease and pressure will decrease. Review these mechanisms and have successful studying. Contact me if you have any questions. We are finished with this. Thank you.